Grenades strike back. Welcome to Star Wars Battlefront, where the Battle of Hoth suddenly looks like, well, it's a lot more yellow, red and orange because it's just lit up with explosions. The game has now launched everywhere, I think. UK and Europe were the last zone. I could be wrong, but anyway. This means that servers are now filling up with more and more players, and the matchmaker is starting to create more and more highly ranked games. I'm currently rank 13 and just got my hands on the jump pack. Makes me feel like I'm back in the beta, but it's also introducing more and more players to what I like to call the grenade loadout, because currently there is no limit on how many grenades you can put in your hand with star cards. And after rank 5, I think, you can equip both the impact grenade and the thermal detonator. Both are small grenades, but they do pack a rather big punch. And add to that the chance of picking up one of the thermal imploders from a power-up coin, and you've got 3 grenades in your hand. So as you can imagine, a lot of these servers are starting to become blast central, with multiple explosions going off everywhere. You could basically classify it as spam. And the only way that I can see the developers really being able to amend this is if they impose a limit on the grenade star cards that you can have in your hand at any one time. Of course, you'll still have the unavoidable issue of the thermal imploder power-up perhaps being randomly chosen, but even then, maybe there could be a way to make that power-up not land on the imploder if the player still has a grenade card that's ready to be used. I mean, I'm not sure, but the higher rank I've gotten, the more spam that I'm seeing, and I for one would like to see that toned down a little bit. It's detracting from what is actually a very good infantry game. I was really enjoying playing with all the different blasters and not really being distracted too much by the little red icons flying at me from the barrage and the impact grenade, the thermal imploder. There's just a little bit too much grenade spam right now, and I would like to see that toned down just a little bit. That grenade issue is probably the most infuriating thing on day one, and to be fair, depending on which game mode you're playing, it can be toned up or down a bit, just depending on who you're playing against. So the fact that there's not really much else annoying me must mean it's going really, really well, and I am actually quite impressed with how this game is playing on PC. Having played on Xbox One last week, I played a full 10 hours on the game there and ranked up to about rank 14. It's a very, very different game on the Xbox One and on the consoles than it is here on PC. Everybody reacts a little bit faster because they've got mouse and keyboard, which is more precise, which means the recoil on all of the blasters is a little bit easier to control. Overall, I just feel that everyone seems to be doing better on PC than they were on console, or at least I feel like I'm back on a level playing field where the people that I'm playing against genuinely are as good as I am. Because when I was on the Xbox, I was much worse than most of the people on there. In terms of game modes, I found myself being pulled into Supremacy, which is like a tug of war taking capture points around the map, and Walker Assault, which, as the name suggests, is a two-way battle between Imperials and Rebels, where the Rebels need to destroy the ATSTs to win. Both of these modes are just classic Star Wars, and they offer you perhaps the closest experience that you can get to being within that universe, playing the battles that you remember from the films. And I'd say that Walker Assault is probably the better of the two game modes for all-out balanced gameplay, because it does give you infantry offerings and you've got vehicle offerings, you've even got air combat in there as well. You do have that in Superiority, but with Walker Assault there is one main objective: take down the ATSTs. Supremacy, I found, is a little bit more focused on infantry combat, and maybe that's why I'm leaning to it overall, but the other game modes, the smaller game modes, ones that don't have as many people on them, I haven't really felt much of a need to go and play them really at all. I am playing the game on my own at the moment. I haven't really had a partner to go and play the game with, so maybe my opinion will change of some of those smaller game modes, but right now playing on my own, I don't really feel like they offer really much incentive for me to go and play them over the all-out battles that I can have in Walker Assault and Supremacy. For example, we have Blast, which is basically TDM, and Droid Run, which is basically domination. They might appeal to me more in a military shooter, but here in the fantasy world of Star Wars, it doesn't really fit for me. It's 6v6 Rebels versus Imperials in different locations. And there's no story behind why they're fighting, they're just there fighting. And the same goes for Hero Hunt, which is quite fun. 6 players versus 1 hero, and the person to kill the hero then becomes the next hero in a long string. It just doesn't have enough basis of story behind it for me to really find it fun. I haven't had the chance to play this as a pair, as I said, so that might change. Maybe having a bit of camaraderie between me and the person that I'm playing with, but right now playing it solo, it just doesn't really interest me all that much. For me, and I'm going to throw my opinion out here, if DICE had taken some of those smaller game modes out or spent a little bit more time on Walker Assault and Supremacy, then I think the game would be more fleshed out and robust. Right now there are only 4 maps for Supremacy and Walker Assault. They use the same zone on the planets, and if DICE had 2 different zones for each of these modes, then there would be a little bit more player variety. And on top of this, I think it would be really cool if there was some sort of voting system whilst you were playing in the round to choose what map you wanted to play on next. Because right now the cycle is Hoth, Tatooine, Endor and then Sullust. And that's a never-ending loop. You just continuously go round one map after another. And there's no chance to maybe have a cool rematch, say on Endor, after there was a really cool end to the round. That would just stop the relentless loop, and maybe having a couple of rounds on each map would be better, or having a voting system allowing the players who are in that server to choose what map would come next. I think that would just be a better implementation overall. And just before I end here, I want to quickly touch on the weapons available as primary blasters, because I do feel that DICE have done quite a good job at balancing these. There are 11 in total, and in comparison to the star cards, which are questionably balanced and some being much more powerful than others, the blasters are all very unique and have their own areas where they excel and fail. For example, I'm really loving the T21 blaster right now, which is a slow firing, high damage DMR style weapon, and it's great for taking out longer range targets. Although up close, it's much harder to aim with, and the pulse fires so infrequently that you'll easily be taken out by some of the blaster pistols like the DH-17, which has a much faster fire rate. The only weapon that I'd say I'm not too happy with is the DL-44 Heavy Blaster, which is a blaster pistol in its own right. It is insanely powerful and has a bit too much damage at range for my liking. Not to mention, if you got the digital deluxe version of the game, then you will have this unlocked straight away. You don't even need to rank up in order to get it. And that kind of breaks the balance that DICE have tried to create here. I do hope that they've got some good data from the first few days of the game, maybe enough for them to make a few changes in the first patch, and some of the star cards overall, because I do think they need looking at. Might talk about that in a separate video. There could be some nice changes in the first patch. So, Grenade Wars Battlefront is off and running. It's a solid shooter experience with Star Wars smothered all over it. Oh, and don't forget, if you think there might not be enough content in the game, well, the Battle of Jakku DLC is not far away either, and that is free for everyone who bought the game. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Star Wars Battlefront so far. Are you enjoying blasting the rebel scum, or is there something else that's got you gasping to give your opinion? Let me know down below, and while you're there, leave me a thumbs up as well. But until next time, my name is Westy, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.